Hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to welcome everybody to the 2015 User Group Meeting on Sales and Marketing. My name is Rob Rogers, and together with my business partner Tim McNeil, we own Osprey Strategic Research. We are an MSP-focused, an MSP-only business development company where we go into clients' territories and build a customized sales and marketing department for them that is unique in their territory to give them a competitive advantage against all their peers out there. We also do sales training where we help you onboard a sales rep to teach them how to have best-in-class habits and sales abilities in this industry, and then their ongoing coaching training as they're moving along in their careers. And lastly, we do the lead generation specifically in our industry using how we built our sales departments in other MSPs as well. We do this for MSPs as small as 2 people all the way up to multinational companies that have hundreds of people in them. And today, Connectwise has asked me to come in here and explain to everybody how we do these strategies so successfully across the nation. And more specifically, how do we give you that competitive advantage in your territories against others? I know most people talk about their competitive advantage when they're just starting out as their customer service, their communication, and their responsiveness. But I would like to discuss with you today how we can do even better than that, because I believe that customer service, communication, and responsiveness are the symptoms of what gives you a competitive advantage, not what the root causes are. I believe that its productivity and efficiencies are how we can give our clients and our prospects a competitive advantage in their territory. Because let's think about this. When you go to your client or you go to a prospect, what are they really doing by interacting with you? What do they want to accomplish? Well, they want to outsource their non-critical functions to a third party so they can focus their time, their energy, and their resources on their core competencies so they can make them bigger, better, and faster. Right? By focusing on their core competencies, they can gain higher profitability, thus investing more money into the company and growing that way, or keeping the profit margins the same but decreasing the price and thus crushing their competitors that way. So they're trying to gain a competitive advantage in their territory by working with you. So we want to make sure that they choose us, and we are going to be able to prove to them that we are the best in the industry, and not just by saying that we have great customer service, communication, and responsiveness. Because let's think about it. Everybody in this room has great customer service, communication, and responsiveness. If you didn't in this highly competitive industry, you wouldn't be here. You would be back at your office trying to put out fires left and right all the time, just trying to keep your client base happy and with you instead of dumping you. So if customer service, communication, and responsiveness is it does a great job at that, then that is not a differentiator. That is a standard operating procedure. We all have to have great customer service in order to stay in business. So today we're going to talk about what we can do to give ourselves that competitive advantage by focusing on productivity and efficiencies, and how we can relate this to our customers, because we want to be unique and different and have a competitive advantage. And we want to do this by alleviating the risks that our clients see with us. Right? So there's going to be 2 things that we're discussing here today. First, we're going to talk about your sales department and what we can do there. And we're also going to talk about the pitch. This class is going to be built across 2.5 hours of information that I'm going to be giving. And in this 2.5 hours, we're going to be talking about inbound lead generation strategies, outbound lead generation strategies, how to build your sales department, and how to build your pitch. Because your pitch is the core of what you are. And the person who has the better pitch wins. Because we know when people are out there, if you have that top 1% sales personality and you come in, you're going to win if everybody is the same. Because the 2 triggers that people understand most when they're analyzing the risks and the benefits of working with you are 2 things they know intimately. They know to look at price, and they know to work with people that they like. So in the absence of a significant value or a significantly understood value, they look to price. They're price shoppers, or they look to that great personality. They look to people they want to be around. Even though they know that the salesperson is not going to be around after they close the deal, they still want to be around that person and that type of personality. So we have to understand what the triggers are, and if we're going to work in a way that we're providing significant value and a higher price for that significant value, we have to prove and have them understand our significant value. So I told you we're going to break this class up into 2.5 hours, and there's two different parts here, right? So I told you there's inbound and there's outbound marketing. So what does that really mean? The inbound strategies are if you have an IT company and they are attached to a client, right, through a contractual relationship. An inbound strategy means that they are breaking up. The breaking up process is already done, and that client is looking for the hope of a new experience somewhere else, and you want them to come inbound to you. So you use inbound strategies. That's the inbound strategies that we're going to talk about in the second class are Google AdWords related. In the second class, we're also going to be talking about how to build with your sales department and then scale your sales department. But in this class, we're going to do the most difficult job of salespeople out there, and that is the outbound strategies, right? So when you have your IT company and they're attached to a client through a contractual relationship, outbound strategies are where you're trying to create a division, a wedge between the IT company and the client and separating them. That is what outbound lead generation strategy is, and that's what prospecting is, and that's what makes it so unbelievably difficult for people, because you're actively trying to build a wedge in between a happy relationship. So that's what we're going to talk about here in this first class. So like I said, in the second class, we're going to be talking about the two different types of strategies. On the left-hand side of the screen is inbound, and on the right-hand side of the screen is the outbound. And we're going to focus on how we're going to do the prospecting right now. But don't worry, we're going to also talk about the sales engineer and how to hire a sales manager and how to hire all these people and what you should be paying them. But first, let's start at the beginnings about how do we prospect and how do we craft our pitch. So Connectwise asked me to come in here. They told me I'm doing a 4-part tour, right? I'm doing Atlanta, New Jersey, and Chicago, and then I'm going down to IT Nation. They've asked me to talk a lot about these strategies, but how did they find me? They found me because I've been a Connectwise user for about 4 years now, and my business partner's been a Connectwise user for about 6.5 years. And they finally found us last year when we went down to IT Nation and we took IT Nation by storm. We entered into that Road to Reinvention contest by Josh Linkter for the best new business idea or business reinvention, and we took the grand prize there. More importantly, and much more significantly, I led a master level sales and marketing class in which, out of all 89 speakers, I was the #1 speaker there. And it wasn't because of my great ideas, and they're fantastic ideas. But it was because behind the great ideas, I put the plan of action in place. I put the vision. I put everything there with the screenshots and everything that you needed to go back into your company and build your company, so they weren't just great ideas. Because a great idea to an entrepreneur is a dream, and it's just a dirty word, right? We don't want to hear about your dreams. We want to hear about the vision, the strategy. How can we implement or make an actual request off of this information? Whenever we do something, we want to be like these two gentlemen, hopefully one over the other, right? You got Al Capone. He wasn't just a dreamer, he was a visionary, and he executed on his plan of action. Now, his plan of action that he executed on, he took it literally and went overboard, but he was the best at what he wanted to accomplish, and he accomplished his vision. And everybody out there wanted to take down Al Capone, the #1 criminal genius of the time. And everybody tried. Judges, lawyers, FBI agents, DEA, everything, everybody out there was trying to take him down, and nobody could get anything to work and take him down with. But one gentleman who thought out of the box and was creative and followed his vision and stuck to it was Eliot Ness. And he figured out a way to take down Al Capone, not with the cool shootouts or, with any of the cool things. He found a way, and he made it happen through tax evasion. Right? There was no OK Corral, there was no Bonnie and Clyde shootout. It was, hey, you didn't pay your taxes, time to go to jail. So I want to give you how I got here and how I came up with my strategies in 89 seconds. So you know why Connectwise found me, but how did I get up here? What got me to this point in my career where I'm able to tell everybody these strategies and understand how to build this market? So my background in 89 seconds. I'm a combat vet from the 82nd Airborne Division. I went to the University of Florida, met my beautiful wife, majored in medical biology, and entered into the pharmaceutical industry. Became a pharmaceutical sales rep in primary care, was the #1 salesperson in the nation by my first year and a half. Got promoted into specialty care, was the #1 salesperson in the nation there. Got put on the management track, was dominating there until I realized management and corporate life just wasn't for me. It was too slow, in my opinion. I like to move and shake for me to grow and see my results. It took a year to a year and a half to see the efforts of my labor when I like to see it in the next quarter. It was right around then that a buddy asked me to go into his small business. He had 7 people at the time. So I enthusiastically dumped that great salary, jumped into this small business, and we took off. And I jumped into the automotive parts industry, fighting against the big 3 in the automotive world. We grew that company to a $57 million company before he retired, and I had 3 choices. Retire, take the corporate job, which I've already decided I didn't want to do, or try and go into another SMB environment, which brought me to our industry. In 2012, I joined a small MSP in Hartford, Connecticut named IT Direct. They had 12 people at the time. Within 24 months, we doubled the size of the company, got them on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies list, the MSP Mentors Top 501, and we were thoroughly dominating our territory. And every year we were going down to IT Nation, 2012, 2013, 2014, and I realized that this industry was still in its infancy. It was only about 10 years old, right? Before that, it was all break fix, and then right when we started getting into proactive management, started getting into remote monitoring tools, we started getting into these monthly reoccurring deals times multiple year deals, right? That was when the industry really started to mature and we were up at the big boy table. But when I looked around at IT Nation, I saw brilliant IT people, Jedi Master level entrepreneurs, but sales managers, there was a gap. Sales managers from mature industries, there was a gaping hole. Because take these 2 gentlemen up on our screen. Alex Rogers of Chartex and Gary Pica, 2 dominating presence in our industry. Alex Rogers owns Chartec and he also owns ARC Technologies. Alex Rogers is a top 1% salesperson in the industry. He compels people with the power of his personality, his grit and determination, his entrepreneur spirit. And he has grown ARC Technologies from a little bitty window shop all the way up into a successful small mid-sized business. But let's remember this about Alex Rogers. Before he started ARC Technologies, he was a cashier at Circuit City. He did not have any sales management experience to draw upon, so he hit every roadblock and every dead end to get to the top. Now, he made it to the top, but it took him 21 years to get there. And let's take Gary Pica. Gary is another top 1% sales personality, compels people with the power of his personality. He lights up the room whenever he walks into a room. He has that grit and determination, that entrepreneur spirit. And when he built his company, he was able to do it bigger, better, and faster because he had sales director experience in a mature industry from ADP. So he was able to do it in more of a linear path than Alex. Now, they're both very, very successful people, and you can't take anything away from them. But the road that they traveled was different because of sales management experience, specifically for mature industry. So that was my eureka moment. That was when I understood that I was going to be able to come in here with my 21 years of sales management experience, fighting against corporate giants. Because one thing you don't know about me is I was at a pharmaceutical company that nobody in this room has heard of. I wasn't at Pfizer. I wasn't at Merck. I was at a company called Boehringer Ingelheim. And we were always fighting against the big boys. And we had to learn how to be scrappers. And we had to learn how to have those guerrilla tactics that only smaller companies fighting bigger companies can have. Same thing with the automotive parts industry. I had to learn how to be a scrapper and how to fight against the big boys in the big boy environment. So that was when I knew that I could go in and help other people understand the strategies to make them successful in sales and marketing. So I went to the owner of the MSP I was working at and I said, "Hey Ari, I'm going to go start my own MSP business development company, and I'm only going to work in the MSP space, and I'd like you to be my first client." He enthusiastically said yes. He's still my client, one of my best clients to this day. And we've now been in business for almost 2 years now, and we've grown significantly. So today, when I'm speaking to you, I'm going to be talking a lot about the things that we're doing and the processes, but I'm not going to be showing any processes up on this screen. All the processes will be given in the playbook that is in the hidden slides or in the zip file that I'll be giving you guys. And it's both for this class and the next class. So if you hear me refer to the playbook, the playbook is going to be given to you by Aaron, Andrea, or Lucy. Okay, so let's just jump right into this. Who are these hunters, these salespeople, right? There's two different types of salespeople out there that we need to keep track of. Just like there's two different types of IT people, right? You have your software IT people and you have our hardware IT people. And then within those, you have a bunch of subcategories as well. So in our world, in the sales world, there's hunters and farmers. So for prospecting, we're going to be using the hunter. The hunter is the one you're going to be looking for. So what do these hunters do? Well, if they're doing their job, this is what their day, their week, their month looks like. They spend 68% of their time prospecting. Within that 68% of the time, 20 to 30% of that is spent calling on brand new people that they've never called on before. The other 70 to 80% is follow-up calls. Now, these follow-up calls are what we're going to be talking about with our secret sauce, the big idea that we had that changed the industry and flipped it on its head. But because the follow-up calls can be very powerful, or it can just be the next thing that you have to check off your list in your activity feed on Connectwise. So before we talk more into that, let's go down to the rest of this bar graph here. So the bottom part of this, the administrative time. The administrative time takes about 20% of their time, and it has to be done. You really can't skimp out any more than 20%. And here's a pro tip. Let's move off to the side here and talk a little bit about your brand new sales manager, or sometimes even brand new owners that are just now starting off with salespeople. When you are starting off with a salesperson, you intuitively know that they've got to be on the phones, they've got to be prospecting so they can fill their pipe. We all got that. But what you also have to make sure that you're doing is your daily morning huddle with them. What did they accomplish yesterday? What do they have on the docket for today? Every single day, 15 minutes. You also got to start off your week with your sales meeting. What's going on globally? What deals are likely to close? What's going on, as it relates to the pipe? And you also have to do your weekly one-on-ones with your employees, finding out where their head's at. Is there anything that you need to be worried about? What are they working on during their off-hour times or their non-selling times? Like what books are they reading? Things like that. And finally, and here's where most people tend to neglect, is the sales training. A minimum of 1 hour per week needs to be done sales training. And this has to be taken very seriously, because the sales training is where you're earning your money. Because remember, most of the time they're either prospecting or they're doing administrative times. They're not actually talking to somebody where they're working on a deal. So if they're spending most of their time doing non-deal work, then when are they practicing their flow and their ability to work those deals? They can't be practicing as they're doing it, because then they're just not going to be successful. Think about this. An NFL player, top 1% athlete in the world in their game. They play a game for millions and millions of dollars on the weekend for 4 hours. But they practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just so they can do that. So they earn their money during the week. They make their money on Sundays. So we have to take sales training just as serious as they do. And a minimum of 1 hour is what you need to accomplish that. Your sales reps will take it as importantly as you make it. So make it very important, and they'll take it very seriously, and you'll see the fruits of your labor realized through return on investment. So if we've talked about 68% of the prospecting, and we've talked about 20% admin, what is this last part, right? This is the pipe. The ASC is the pipe, the active sales cycle. This is the part where you have somebody that you're speaking to, either in a phone appointment, an on-site appointment, your proposal meeting, your net detective meeting, whatever it is, the T's and C's meeting, or when they're following up at the end to find out if they won the won the deal, they lost the deal, is it on hold, is it on hold, all that. That time that it takes across the weeks and the months is about a 10-hour investment. But it's in little slivers. So you're working on one part of the deal where you're just doing the phone appointment. You're working on another deal where you're doing the on-site appointment. So generally, it's only about 13% of their time. So if they're only spending 13% of their time making you money, they better be damn good at it. So they have to be training all the time to make sure that they can get there. So the one thing we know about sales managers is and owners when they're first starting out, like I said, they know that they have to have their employees prospecting all the time so they can fill their pipe. But what they don't know is that as soon as they're prospecting, how can you make it more efficient? And this is what the good sales managers are trying to do. The good sales managers out there are trying to make their prospecting time more efficient so they can get more people on the phone, right? But in our industry, there's a unique qualifier to what we're doing. Because it's not just calling more people, getting more people on the phone, and trying to get more appointments. Because we have something else that we have to consider in our industry. So we know that sales ability is something that all sales managers are training. They talk to their sales reps and they're always trying to make them better. So they have the best sales reps in the industry. They have Alex Rogers on the phone. And then they're trying to get more live answers, right? They're trying to get to more decision makers on the phone. And that's what the good sales managers are trying to do. But the great sales managers understand that there's one more qualifier in this, and it makes all the difference in the world. And this is where our secret sauce comes in. This is where we were able to take our big idea and shift the paradigm of the entire calling industry in the MSP world. And that is your 3-month window. Yeah, what does that really mean, right? So we're in a heavily contracted industry. All of us and all of our competitors have contracts, or we have some type of, either it's a letter of intent, but most people in here use a contracted form. So if we're pretty much all in a contracted industry, then why are we calling people when their contract's not up? Let's think about that. So if you're in a this is a graph up here, and it shows on the left-hand side years 2015, years 2016, years 2017, and then January through December across the top. If you're in January and you're calling, you got your rep calling in January, what are the odds? What's the probability that he randomly calls somebody and they are within the 3-month window of availability? Because nobody's going to set an appointment with you if their contract is 9 months out. So why are you calling them? So we need to find out that information. It turns out that if you call somebody in January, and even if you called them, and even if you got the decision maker on the phone, the odds that you are going to be able to set an appointment, even with everything else being absolutely perfect, is 12.5% on a 2-year deal. How discouraging is that? If you're in a 3-year deal, and this is why I encourage everybody to get into 3-year deals, the odds of somebody calling one of your clients randomly is once, even if they got them on the phone, which is, 10% chance there, even if they got them on the phone, to have the odds of them being able to be within their contract window is only 8.3%. So as you can see, what this really means is if they make 100 calls, and we know that our industry at best is 10% decision makers, right? You make 100 calls, you're going to get to 10 decision makers. That's a 10% return on your investment. So out of those 10 decision makers, 8% of them are going to be within their window of availability, between 8 and 12%. That's between 0.1 and 1.2 abilities to get an appointment. So even if Gary's on the phone and he's working his mojo and he gets to the decision maker, the odds of him being able to get in a call or get an appointment with this guy, because the guy's in a long-term contract, is between 8% and 12%. So we had to find a way to increase our calls by bettering our follow-up calls. Because at the end of the day, who cares if you're calling somebody and they're not within their contract window of availability? That's the whole thing right there. So when we're doing brand new calls, we're setting up our follow-up calls to be at the appropriate date. Because typically when a sales rep calls, for his first time or his follow-up calls, they say, oh, we're kind of in a good spot right now. They go, okay. Your rep goes, okay, that's great. Well, do you mind if I follow up with you in 6 months? Then we can take it up there and see how you're doing. Well, what does that do? Nothing. You just wasted your time and their time, and then you're going to waste it again in 6 months. So here's what we do. We don't care if somebody says call us back at the end of accounting season, call us back at the end of the year, because that's everybody's off vacation, or after July, school season, or the budget, or all that kind of stuff. We want to know exactly when their contract end date is going to come up so we can call them at the appropriate time. So how are we going to do that? So this graph right here is how you do an introductory call. And I'm giving you the algorithm, the system that you use to set up your call to get you into the objection handling stage. Right? So when you call somebody up out of the blue, the first thing you do is you talk to the gatekeeper. We know this. There's 3 questions you need to ask that gatekeeper in some capacity or some form, whether it's in this call or the next call. You eventually need to have your checklist completed. And when you talk to the gatekeeper, you need to find out, is this company an internal IT company or do they outsource? She'll be able to answer that, or he'll be able to answer that. And even if they don't know, they go, I don't know. And you say, well, do you call an internal extension or do you call an outside number when your computer goes on the fritz? And she'll be able to, or he'll be able to answer that. The next thing you want to know is, I have you down for having more than 20 people at your company. Is that about right? Some type of qualifier to where your minimums are met right at the gatekeeper. Otherwise, what are you calling for? And then the last question you need to know is, who's in charge of your IT contract? Who's the decision maker in your IT contract or your IT department? Those are the 3 questions you need to ask your gatekeeper, whether it's this call or next call, and you need to practice that and make sure you have your flow down. But let's get to the call where we got our hunter. You found a hunter. He's a great hunter, and they're working. So what do? Every single sales hunter in the world who's been in the job for more than 5 seconds understands that after they get the information out of the gatekeeper, when they're speaking to the decision maker, they only have about 10 seconds to pique interest. So they all start off with a compelling statement or a hook, right? And the hooks are different. It depends on what you want to do, and how you want to gain their attention. You want to gain their attention, and you have about 5 to 10 seconds to do that. But everybody knows how to do the hook. But what most people start messing up on, and this is from a rep that's been around for 5 seconds all the way to 30 years, this is one of the first things they start messing up on, is the feature. The feature is your describer. It describes your company in some capacity. So if we use a car, it describes the color or the seats or how fast it goes or what's its gallons per mile. All the things that describe the car, facts, figures, statistics, descriptions, all those things are features. And it's mostly where the marketers play. If you think about Geico can save you 15% or more on your car insurance, that's a feature of Geico. And that's what is marketed on television. So they leave it up to you to decide what that 15% is going to do for you. So in the feature problem, what happens most of the time is you get your rep, they go in, they give a feature, right? Then they're so excited to get on the phone, they give another feature to the company. They say, oh, our company does this, right? And when they just keep going down the feature line, it's called feature dumping. It's called showing up and throwing up. And all it is just ticking off the person that's on the other end of the phone. Because they go, oh, our company can do this, and this. You want to set up an appointment? And the prospect is like, no, I don't. And the rep doesn't understand why, nobody wants to set up an appointment with them. And he blames you, and then he quits. But really, he was feature dumping, and he was doing the most common mistake of salespeople. So you can fix that pretty quickly. He's got to associate either a feature to a benefit or a feature set around a benefit set. Like a feature set would be around value or around efficiencies or productivity or something like that. So it's around, we do this and this as it relates to our value, and it gives you this value in return. So, but here's the next problem that people mess up when they're doing the features, right? They give the feature that they like the best. They give their best and favorite feature that they think that the other person's going to like because they like it, right? But it turns out that you have to do your features based on the title of the person that you're speaking to. And that feature is what's important to them. At the end of these slides, I give you, different buzzwords and keywords that you have to use with different, different managers, right? So an IT manager or a business manager has different features that they care about versus a CEO, right? We can intuitively understand that. So at the end of this presentation, I'll give you that list. It's in the playbook, and I think I have one slide up here as well at the end to show you that. So if we know that we give the hook, and we know that we give the feature, and we only give one feature to a benefit, and it has to be to the title of the person that we're speaking to, what's the next part? What's step 3 here? This is the most critical part, and if you take anything away from this presentation, you have to take the bridge, the transition statement. It's the most important piece because it helps the rep do two things. First, the transition statement is this. What that means to you, name. So what that means to you, John, the thing that is able to accomplish in the prospect's head is this. It specifically targets the reward center of their brain, their limbic system, where they understand that there is about to be a powerful reward for them personally. So they allocate resources, right? The limbic system is your fight or flight response, your help or hinder response. And it takes over the entire body. Right? And it will actively, you'll see people, if you're looking at them, you'll see them lean forward in anticipation. They'll stop looking at their watch, or they'll stop looking at the contract. And you'll say, what that means to you, John, is this. The second thing that it does is it uses their name, the most powerful word in the vocabulary. So you have got their undivided attention because you're about to drop down into benefits mode. This is where the salespeople play. We are the gladiators of the Coliseum when it comes to this part. The marketers own the features, we own the benefits. The benefits are where you put an emotional tie-in to the feature because nobody cares about a feature by itself without emotional tie-in unless you're branding. Geico can save you 15% or more on your car insurance. We've all heard this many, many times because that's what the marketers do. They brand to you that way, and then it's up to you to come up with an emotional tie-in. Salespeople tell you what the emotional tie-in is and get you talking in that capacity. Once they talk about the benefits, then that's where they're making their money. But again, benefits can come at a price. If you don't do benefits correctly, you'll fail and you won't win. Benefits have to be given to the title of the person that you're speaking to, not to what you want to talk about. Right? If you tell an IT manager that you're going to save the company $50,000 next year by going to your product, he doesn't care, right? Now, what he does care about is what he's going to get from doing that. So if you're going to save him save the company $50,000, there's another emotional tie-in that he cares about, whether he's going to get a promotion, the owner's going to think he's great, he's going to be able to buy that brand new sand that he's been wanting to get. That's the emotional tie-in that you should have used with him, the thing that spoke to him directly. Talking about saving the company $50,000 doesn't matter to him. That matters to the CEO. So you have to make sure you tie in the benefit to the title of the person that you're speaking to. There's more to it than this. I mean, you start getting into personalities and things like that when you're analyzing benefits, and you can get really deep into this. But to understand the basics of what we're trying to accomplish, you want to make sure you give your features and your benefits to the title of the person you're speaking to. And you're going to build your training programs off of this so your sales reps just intuitively get this and they just start doing it over and over and over, and they understand how to do this and they build it. And it just becomes rote to them. So say we got Alex Rogers calling. And he went through his 3 things up at the top with the gatekeeper. He found out if it was an internal company or an outsourced IT. Found out that they have over 20 devices in the company, and the IT manager's name is John. The decision maker's name is John. He spoke to John, gave him a great hook, a compelling statement, right into a feature for the IT manager, gave the transition statement, gave the benefit. He's moving and shaking, he's bobbing and weaving, he's doing great. Next thing that happens is he's got to do his first trial close. Now, this entire thing that just happened has only taken between 20 and 25 seconds. This hasn't been very long, right? And that's on the long side. That's after you made a couple introductions and you've talked a little bit, but you got into the call because you're talking about your star power. You're trying to build star power, not relationship power. You don't want to know if his kids are going to soccer practice. What you want to know is that he understands that you guys are the best of the best. And you explained your features and benefits in order to get yourself to this trial close. And the first trial close is you're trying to set up an appointment with them. And once you get to this stage, you have to do it in one of two ways. There's a good way and a bad way, just like everything. First is the passive way. The passive way is, hey, John, I was wondering if you had your calendar available. Maybe we could set up some time for next week. That's a passive lay down sort of way, and it's not going to work, right? That's the way that you do it if, you're not very good and you don't want to have very strong successes. You'll get there. The people who are lay downs will give you an appointment. But the people where you have to work for it, to earn their trust and earn their respect, you're going to have to do it in an assertive way to get them to the objection stage, because it's super easy for the prospect to say, no, my calendar's not available, or no, I don't have time next week. And there's no follow-up to that they have to give you. So, but if you do it in an assertive way, saying, John, this looks like it's a really good fit for us. I have some time on my calendar next Tuesday or Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Which one of those times work best for you? Now, if they're going to give you a no, they're still going to give you a no. But what they're going to do is you pin them down, so they're going to give you an objection. And the objection, because you asked in an assertive way, they're going to give you an assertive response, and that's where you start your conversation. And this is where the sales starts happening, when you start getting to objection handling. So the objection handling comes in, we do it in a certain way, right? There's a lot of different systems out there. We use a system that I developed called the Can I Close, right? Clarify, analyze, neutralize, influence, and then close. Close the next step. That's way too complicated for this class right here, but just understand that you have to have your system of objection handling once you get past all this and they give you your first no. So let's say that you got past the objection handling stage and they gave you 3 objections, you can't overcome them, and you found out that he's in a contract, right? Because after you get through your first or second objection, and it's all about something to do with we're all set. Once you get to that stage, then you have to pull back and you start to get on his side again. And you say, I can completely understand that you guys are all set over there. I can completely understand you're loyal, whatever their excuse or reason is. And then you say, I bet you guys are in a contract, aren't you? You get to the contract side of this entire script. And they will always say, yes, I'm in a contract, because we know that the majority of our industry is in a contract, right? So if they're already in a contract, you have to find out when the contract ends, not anything else. You find out when the contract ends by saying this. Look, over here at ABC Company, we take a different approach. We want to provide value to you when it's important to you, because IT is changing at the speed of light. What was the best value 2 years ago is definitely not going to be the best value by next year already. So what we'd like to do is get your contract end date and show you the value that we can provide when it's important to you. Because we have a completely different philosophy here than everybody else in our industry, and it's the reason we've been so successful with our clients. When's your contract end date? And we'll take up this conversation then. Now, they'll give you their contract end date. Most people will just give you their contract end date because it's a benefit to them. They think 2 things. 1, they're getting you off the phone. 2, they have to give their bosses a proposal. They have to see if there's anything better out there. It makes them look good if they do that. So they'll give you their contract end date, and if they don't, it's usually because they don't remember their contract end date. They're thinking to themselves, oh gosh, was it October 6th or October 7th of next year? I don't remember. But we're salespeople. We're not specific. We're not black and white. We're more the general area types guys. So what we say is, okay, I can completely understand that. So was it more of a springtime contract or was it a wintertime contract? That tends to help people get into where you're looking for. Because what they'll usually say is, oh, my kids had just gotten out of school, so it was around July sometime. And you'll say, great, we'll take it up at the beginning of summer. You can either do it in quarters, like was it more of a first quarter contract or a fourth quarter contract, or you can do seasonal. Was it a springtime or a winter time? Those scenarios, nail it down to what you're looking for, because you're just trying to get to the beginning of, you're trying to get 4 months out from where he thinks. So if he thought it was around July, you want to start 3 to 4 months before that, because it's going to take some time to get him on the phone, then set up the appointment, and then you want to get in there before the current company catches wind of it and tries to re-sign him. So that contract end date script, if you insert some form of contract end date script right there, then you're going to be able to dramatically increase your abilities, because it doesn't stop there. The call for the top 1% people doesn't stop there. The call hasn't ended. So if they have their contract end date script, the very next thing that they do is their pain response. And this is as they're closing out the call. They've got the contract end date. They're getting the guy's email address because they want to be able to keep in contact, and they want to give them information. They say, John, I just want to send you over some information on our company, and if you ever need a second project proposal, or you just need something to make your boss happy, or if you even need a second set of eyes on target, or God forbid something happens and you need us, I want to send you over my contact information. And now here's where the pain response comes in, and it's an off-the-cuff, out-of-curiosity type of setup, the way I do it, right? You could do it a different way, but you got to find the pain that they're having. So as they're giving you the information, you just say off-the-cuff, hey, John, just out of curiosity, what would have to happen for you guys to really consider moving away from your current vendor? That right there, they will respond because they're in a more comfortable position, because the call's over and you're not selling anymore. They're about to hang up. They're going to say either their perceived fear with their current company or their real pain. Either one of those are what you're going to be working on in your next call. So you put that in your notes, and you're all squared away for the next call moving forward. If your sales rep is doing this, they asked the 3 questions with your gatekeeper. They went through this new call flow, and then they got the pain response. They got the contract end date. They got the email. And if they got all that information, they are going to be the top 1% sales rep for you in this nation. They are going to be good. And they don't have to be your closers, because now they've gotten contract end dates when people are already under the assumption that the contract's going to change. There's a contract on the table, and somebody is going to get it. Either the current vendor they're going to stay with the current vendor, or they're going to move somewhere else. And now you've gotten yourself into the appointment setting phase with these people. This is going to dramatically increase your abilities to increase your pipe. Remember how I told you that you're always trying as a sales manager to increase your pipe by making your prospecting more efficient. So if you're doing your active selling cycle with our contract end date system, you will take your active selling cycle and triple it, and it will only cut into your prospecting, not into your administrative side. You're going to have a fantastic pipe. You are going to start going from contract end dates to contract end dates. You're going to have 20 contract end dates in January. You'll make yourself a huge Excel sheet where you have all the years listed and people in their contract end dates and when their contract end dates are coming up. And you're going to be like, oh, they're coming up next month. We got to start working on them. So it becomes a very powerful system, and your reps will buy into it after they start seeing some success with it. In the beginning, they're not going to buy into it because they're going to think about stuff that's immediate and not long term. So you're going to have to really make sure that you're monitoring the metrics of your reps to make sure that they're actively going after their contract end dates. And if you use our activity point system through Connectwise, then you'll be able to monitor those things. But we're going to talk about the activity point system in the second class. So that's the good news. The contract end date selling system will dramatically increase your appointments, and the appointments that are important because the contract is coming up for renewal. But the problem with this system, and there's a big problem, is it's a commodity. When you go in there and they're doing a vendor-to-vendor comparison, a proposal-to-proposal comparison, remember what I said. If the absence of value, they use price and personality. So you have to make sure that you are getting yourself out of that commodity hole. Because when you go in there, they hear apples-to-apples comparison, they hear price-to-price comparison. Every single time. And it used to blow us up because we were not a tier-through company. We were a very high-priced company, high values, high price. So what we did was we built an email marketing campaign that was specifically geared toward these clients are these prospects that we had the contract end date for, so we could drip on them every single month in a compelling and content driven way, so our relationship was built and they understood that we were a value company and not just a commodity comparison. So what is this email campaign that we did? First things first, I'm not going to explain every single process in what we do. It's in the playbook, right? So just understand globally, if you understand the marketing manager inside of Connectwise, you're going to set up 3 groups. You're going to set up inside of Connectwise your contract end date group, your prospect group, your general prospects that you just have emails for, and your lost proposals group. But right now we're going to focus on the contract end date group. So you got an email for a contract end date, you put them into the group, and then every month they're in a group that gets the contract end date email sent out to them. So what are we sending out, right? First things first, we have to understand the structure of what we're sending out. Every quarter, it's exactly the same. It's a boilerplate, exactly the same every quarter. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So inside quarter 1, or whatever quarter you're in, the first month they get a video. It's an animated video, and I'll teach you how we're going to make that. Then they get a case study in month 2. Then they get an industry article in month 3. Then in the next quarter, they do the exact same thing again. A different type of animated video, a different type of case study, and a different type of industry article. Now, a case study we understand, but what's an industry article? An industry article doesn't have to be about Windows 2003. It doesn't have to be about the newest security threat. It could be your Business Weekly article. It could be about something that happened in your Business Weekly that is inside your territory. So it doesn't always have to be about your industry. It can be about their industry. So it could be a vertical article inside, the attorney industry, or the medical or HIPAA or something like that. It doesn't always have to be something that is IT related. It has to be something that's content driven and that they'll want to read. So we have to do this in steps, right? So I don't want to get into all the steps here, but just understand that there's 4 steps. They're inside the playbook, and it explains it both in the track side and in what the manager has to do or the sales rep has to do and what everybody has to do. But what's the flow of what we're doing? So we're building a 300 to 500 word article once per month, and your sales rep can do it. You don't have to be the one to do it. You just have to be the one to check it. 300 to 500 words that's put on your blog once per month. You're going to build an email that captures the first paragraph of that blog on your email, and then you're going to send that email to all your contract end date people, right? So the blog is going to be where you put the information with the link to your YouTube page or the case study or the industry article, whatever you're doing. But you want to make sure that your email is not just a dry email. It's got to be done in the form of MailChimp or Constant Contact. But we don't have to use those guys. We can do this inside of another program called coffeecup.com. It's my favorite program out there for all these companies. I usually try and give you 1 to 2, maybe 3 different companies that I like. I haven't found anybody else that I like Coffee Cup. It's just so easy to use. And it builds your email just like MailChimp or Constant Contact with drop and drag type of content that you can put in there with the pictures and the logos and all that kind of stuff. So we know that we got a blog post, and we're going to put it inside of an email template. Now we have to make sure that we're going to track it, because you want to track when somebody opens your email and when somebody clicks on a link inside of your email. So the way that you do it is you either use Next2, Joom Connect, or Yellow Bus. And all 3 of them are good programs. I choose Yellow Bus because it's free, 1. And 2, it does everything that I need it to do, and I like the company. I just like the way that they work with me. So it integrates with your Connectwise, and I have a YouTube video on how to integrate it. It integrates with your Connectwise and creates activities for you, works with your contacts, works with the reporting, and you set up your email through the template inside of Connectwise. You blast it out from Connectwise, and it will track who opens and who clicks on a link, and then creates an activity for you. And your hunter is the one that's checking on this activity. So the last two things on this right-hand side of the screen are the Powtoons and Go Animate, right? Those are the two different animated videos out there that you can use. I prefer Powtoons. I like it a lot. You have to buy this one if you don't want to have their logo on your stuff. It's pretty inexpensive. Powtoons, you want to make your videos between 60 and 80 seconds long. Don't make them any longer than that. You start losing people. But they build templates for you, and you can drag and drop inside of those things, and you can get it done yourself. Once you start really understanding how to use Powtoons, then you can start getting more creative in that. They have a lot of really cool features in there. You can embed videos inside of your video. It's really neat. But I like Powtoons, but there's also Go Animate out there as well. So we just have to make sure that we understand that the entire goal of your email marketing campaign is content driven once per month to increase your value outside of the commodity play, so you become a relationship value play when you do finally get your appointment at the contract end date. So what do we have to do in the structure of our call? How are we going to train everybody that we want to talk to? Our sales reps. What are we doing here? Right? There's different parts of the pod. I build everything through pods, whether it's the sales department or the sales training or whatever we're doing. I want to get through chapters or pods before we move on to the next thing. So in prospecting, they have to understand how to do the FTB cycle. They do the features, transition, benefits cycles, and they're doing it to the title. They also have to understand your type of objection handling scenario. It has to be in a conversational flow, and they have to have an algorithm to it. However you do it, it's up to you. I mean, there's a system called FUD. There's a system called Feel Felt Found. There's a system that I use that I built is called Can I Close. There's a lot of systems out there, but basically it's the same thing. You just want to make sure that you're in a logical algorithmed way. They want to have 90 calls per day, and they want to get their contract end dates, the CED. They need to be getting, if they're speaking to 10 decision makers, they need to be getting 4 contract end dates out of those 10 decision makers. That's the average that you can be getting out of that, and it should be able to be accomplished. Before anybody can move from this stage to the next stage, they have to test, and they have to test with 3 people. The first person is the easy appointment setting person, right? There's no objections. It's either the rep next to them or it's the HR manager, somebody like that. Then you amp up the stress level 1 notch and put them to the number 2 person in your company. They have to cold call the number 2 person in your company, and they get 1 objection at that stage. And this literally takes 40 seconds to do. So there's no excuse for your number 2 guys saying that they don't have time to do it. It literally takes 40 seconds. They don't even have to do it over the phone. They can do it while they're both walking over to get their coffee. But the object is to increase the stress level a little bit, because it's much more difficult to do in front of your peers who know when you're making a mistake than it is to do to a prospect over the phone who's only half listening and doesn't know when you made a mistake. And then the last one is the CEO or whoever the principal is that's in charge of this, whether it's the sales manager or it's the CEO. And they have to do 2 objections. And there you just increase the call to 1 minute. 60 seconds. So there's no excuse to ever not do this. You can do it on the way to the car. You can do it on the way out of the car. There's a place and a time that you can always get this done. So you have to make sure you get this done, because these are going to be the faces of your company. And if they're doing it wrong, you're not growing, and it's nobody's fault but your own. So invest the 60 seconds that it takes to get this done, and you'll see a lot of reward for it. Once they get past the prospecting pod, then they move into the next pod, which is the phone appointment, right? Phone appointments, I don't encourage you to set up your calls as phone appointments. The phone appointment is if you have to do it. You go straight to on-site. You want to set up your first appointment to be to an on-site, because you're going to have more successes, and the people that generally go first to on-site are generally more serious about having an appointment. People will, on a phone appointment, they'll take your appointment, put you on mute, and still start doing their stuff like play Excel or whatever they're doing while you're on the phone with them. So If you have to do a phone appointment because of something that's going on, and they say, well, I have to do a phone appointment first because I have to find out this, this, and this, then you say, okay. But otherwise, you shoot straight for the on-site. But you have to practice for the phone appointment, because the first thing that you find out about your sales rep is when he gets on the phone in a phone appointment, you're going to see him show up and throw up again. He's going to get it. He's going to do this entire pitch because he's got somebody on the phone. The phone appointments are just so you can move to the on-site. You answer any questions that they want to answer, and you understand your 3 goals. You got to make your 3 goals here. And the rep's job, the only thing they have to do is accomplish these 3 goals in trying to get to the on-site. The goals of your call are whatever you have as the goals of your call are. You only work with projects that are over $10,000, whatever your 3 goals of to qualify this appointment to move forward. You don't want it to be over 15, 20 minutes long unless they're talking, and you want to make sure that when you have the phone appointment, you say to them, look, we've scheduled 25 minutes for this call. I'll let us know when we're at 25 minutes because I want to respect your time and I don't want to get spend too much more time on it unless you give us permission. So just let them know, and then at 20 minutes or 25 minutes, wherever it is, say, we're at 25 minutes. Do you have a few more minutes to keep going over what we were talking about? And you gave them, you made them feel good about the call. And then you have to do the assertive close. And the assertive close is to the next step, which is the on-site. And the on-site has to be within the week. You don't set on-sites for weeks out unless you absolutely have to. The on-site has to be within 5 business days. So there's a lot of information here that you need to know that is going to be helpful in this pod system. I don't want to go over every single pod that we have here, but you can do this in a way where you feel like once they passed every step and they passed with the 3 tests, then you can move on to the next one. And then once they get done with the very last pod, you start it all over again. And it's a continual training, a cycle over and over and over. And by the time they get back, after they finish up with the follow-ups and they get back to prospecting, you're going to see that they're making some mistakes again, and you're going to be able to fix some of the stuff. Tom Brady, an NFL quarterback, has a quarterback's coach. Every professional out there has a coach to help them along because they're actively doing it. They don't see the bad habits that they're building because they're actually doing it. So you need somebody out there looking at you to see where the bad habits are forming because they want to make money too, right? Your sales reps want to make money. That's their whole goal. And sometimes they don't see the bad habits that they're forming. So just make sure that you keep the cycle going. I told you about the features and benefits and what we were going to be able to do with this. This keyword list on the manager level, the VP director level, and the executive level will really help you out to understand what the keywords are that they're looking for. When you're talking about your features, what features do you need to be setting up? And we're going to talk about the features or the touch points in the pitch part of this class. So I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, so I'll just move on. Just understand that I've broken it out between the 3 different levels of people that you'll be speaking to and how you need to do it. Now, you need to go even deeper into this when you're working with your reps after they get the general gist of what you're trying to do. They need to understand that a CFO has different keywords than the CEO. Okay, so what's our return on investment so far? We know that with our calling campaign, we know our reps out there making 90 calls per day. He should be getting 8 to 12 MSP appointments per month. If you don't do MSPs, you do some other type of MRR deal, they should be able to get 8 to 12 of those per month. Contract end dates. For every 10 decision makers that they speak to, they need to be getting 4 contract end dates and 1 appointment out of those. That's the main metric. What you're going to be able to do to your rep, once they understand the system and they buy into the system, they're going to be able to turn their 10 decision makers and 1 appointment into 10 decision makers and 5 pieces of traction, right? So they get a yes 1 out of 2 times that they get somebody important on the phone. And that is a hell of a lot more important than 1 out of 10. Right? It makes them feel better. You're going to get more morale, more enthusiasm, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to get actively involved in this process with you. The one thing that I want to talk about with the email campaigns is you're going to see email opens, right? Because you're going to be tracking everything. So you're going to see and activities are going to be created, and you're going to have between 12 to 15% of all your emails that you send out are going to be opened. then you're going to see between 0.5 and 1% of all emails that get clicked on, or the links that get clicked on, is going to be about 1% there. Now, here's one problem before we move on. Here's one problem that happens in most of the companies that I work with, and that is your opt-in list. Pretty much everybody in here has bought an email list from somebody, right? And the first time we did it, we all did the cheap way. And we bought 10,000 emails for $1. And then we imported them into Connectwise, and we were going to blast out, and we were going to make a bunch of money. And it turns out it didn't work out that way. And everybody in this room has tried it. I know I did. So here's how you get yourself out of that mess that we created. You import your list. You sign up with MailChimp and with Constant Contact. You sign up with MailChimp. You export your entire email contact list out of your Connectwise, dump it into MailChimp, and they have the best algorithm for detecting honeypots and bad emails out there. Like webmaster at and support at and info at. All those emails, they will find them and scrub them for you. Then what you have left are your true emails. Now, that doesn't tell you whether that person still works at the company or not, but it tells you that it's a true email, and that's what you want. So then when you import those back in, then you have a good email list, or at least an email list that's not going to get you blacklisted from the sites out there. Okay, let's take a 3-second mental coffee break, because now we're going to get into the pitch. My favorite part of the class is the pitch part. Just give me 3 seconds here. Crafting your pitch. Your pitch is the most important part of your business. This is where you're putting your best foot forward. This is date night with your first date. This is where you're putting on your best show and you're going and trying to make an impression. So you can't be just like everybody else. You can't be customer service, communication, responsiveness. You have to be better than that. And you have to tell it in a way that is compelling. We can't all be natural selling Jedi, dragon warriors like Alex Rogers and Gary Pica, carving our way through the territory with the power of our compelling personalities. But what we can do is equalize them with a best-in-class pitch, talking about the value that our company can provide. Because a best-in-class value pitch beats personality every single time. And we're going to do it through telling stories and through benefits. Because stories are 22 times more effective than relating facts alone. Because when you tell somebody a fact, it goes into their ear, it gets decoded in their language processing part of their brain, sent up to the frontal cortex, and gets decoded, and they try and understand what the words are. But because we are evolutionarily programmed to understand our environment through our existing experiences, we don't have anything to draw on. So telling somebody that they can save them 15% doesn't really work with them, because they don't have experiences in their background where they can understand 15%, right? So you have to relate in a story to them or a benefit. Stories work the best because we have been programmed through our evolution to understand our environment through stories. Don't touch that snake that has the rattle, even though you think it's super cool, because Johnny died that way. So we don't like snakes. We don't like snakes because we have a few really core stories about snakes are bad, right? We don't know which snakes are good and which snakes are bad. We just know snake, don't go near it, because we've understood our stories through that. So when we're talking to people about the risk that they're trying to alleviate by working with us, we have to tell them in a best-in-class way. Because what do people understand when they're talking to us? And what are they trying to relate? The risk and rewards. So if they can't use price anymore because your price is way out there and you're trying to explain the differences, you have to do it in a way that works with them. If you don't have the great personality, then you have to do it in another way. So what is the way that we can do it where we can show them that we are the people that they want to hang out with, even though we don't have the best personality? And that's through being number one. Everybody wants to work with the person who's number one in the industry, whatever it is. We all want to be associated with number one. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to alleviate the risk triggers with our prospects by being number one, so we can differentiate through our value that's both tangible and provable. Because if we say we're number one, we have to be able to show it. And we're going to show it in a way that we're really helping to work with their productivity and efficiencies. So how are we going to do it? We're going to do it the Jack Welch way. We all know Jack Welch from GE, built the company over a 20-year span from $12 billion to $400 billion. That is or $200 billion, which is a 4,000% increase over that 20-year span. And he did it by being either number one or number two in every single thing that he worked with at GE. Well, in our companies, we don't have a lot of business units, but what we do have is a lot of touch points. We can be number one in the touch points that we work with our clients with, and we can build a matrix to prove it. So how are we going to be number one or number two, and how are we going to be able to find out that we're better than our competitors in this capacity? There's two ways to find out. First and foremost, you go to Google and you type in local bids, and whatever the bids are in your area through the government website, the government portal, you'll be able to see the past bids that MSPs in your territory have done. And then you can go to that county office through the Freedom of Information Act and get all their T's and C's out of there. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to go into your conference room with your salesperson and your administrative assistant, and you're going to list every single competitor in your territory, and you're going to grade them in 1, 2, or tier 3. If you're a tier 3 company, you're a mom and pop, your value is your low price, and there's nothing wrong with that. Walmart dominates this territory using that. Then you need to know everybody in tier 3, and you need to know everybody in tier 2, which is the mid-level, right? Like the JCPenney's or the Sears or the Macy's, people that have mid-level prices for mid-level services. And then you have your tier 1. So tier 2 has to know all of tier 3, all of tier 2, and sorry guys, you also have to know tier 1. But tier 1 has to know tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is your Mercedes, your Nordstroms, things like that. So once you find out all the competitors and the competitors that you have to worry about, then you have your sales rep and your administrative assistant go out there and comb their website for all the information on their touch points. What kind of plans do they offer? What's their hours? How many people do they have? How long have they been in business? Do they talk about their certifications? Do they have HIPAA classes? And all these different things that you need to find out every single thing that they do in a bullet point fashion, where they interact with their clients in whatever way that they can. Now, we know that all their information isn't going to be on there, right? Most of their core information is not. So what you do is every time you go out to a prospect, when you're in the conversation stage, you need to ask for the competing proposal. And it's not a big deal as long as you say, as soon as you say, if you just go back and you say, look, let me pull back for a second. Redact the prices and redact the company. I don't want to know what the company is. I just want to be able to give you an apples to apples comparison, so I can show you. I see these contracts all the time, and I can show you the value and the philosophy that we provide versus everybody else. So I don't need to see the prices. We offer a fair price for our services, and I don't need to see the company, but I can show you in the contracts where we can do a list by list comparison, and it'll help you out when you're making a decision for yourself. 50% of the people, about 40 to 50% of the people will give you the contract. 100% of the people will redact the prices and sometimes the client information as well, or the competitor's name as well. But it's a benefit to them. They know they've got to do a comparison, and if you're going to list out all the things inside the contract where you do this all the time, they're outsourcing that function to you, so you can do it. So what are some of the ways, so after you get all this information and you're comparing yourself versus everybody else, and you're trying to find ways where you can show that you're number one or number two, and you have to maybe even change some of the things that you're doing in your company. Like your SLAs or your training or your research and development, or how you're doing your VCIO program. Whatever it is, you have to show that you're the best. So I've given you a couple of the the ideas that I see out there over over a lot of the industry. And the first one always is business hours. And every time I say business hours, everybody immediately thinks, oh gosh, I got to pay my reps more, or I got to hire more people. No, that's not what you have to do. So business hours, if everybody is open from 9 to 5, and you open longer on each side of that, and I'm not talking about outsourcing to that Canadian company that does help desk. I mean your local presence. If you're open in a local presence longer than everybody else in your territory, you're number one in that capacity. And why is that important? Well, one, it's a benefit to your employees because now you're offering flex time. If you're open from 7 to 7, and you have employees that can come in at 7 and leave at 4, and then other employees that come in at 10 and stay till 7, they like it because there's employees that want to come in at 7 and leave at 4 so they can go pick up their kids and don't have to spend an extra hour in daycare. And then there's other people who want to come in at 10 because they want to play World of Warcraft till all hours of the night. So you have your two different types of employees, and you didn't have to pay anybody more money. You gave it as a benefit of flex time, so your employees like it even more. And it's a sellable benefit that your company has. Because we all know what happens, and we all have the stories that we can put together for this. If you have company A, who has after hours on call, and you have company B, who's open at 7 o'clock in the morning, we know, and the story that we had was the lawyer who didn't get their brief done over the weekend like they already told the owners they had done. They had to rush in. They remembered it really early in the morning. They rushed into the office. They had to get that brief done by 9 o'clock because they had to get it to the judge by 9. So they were rushing. They had to get to their computer. They did their password, messed it up. They did their password again, screwed it up. They did their password again. They locked themselves out. Oh, crap. Right? That's when the oh, crap happens. And because they didn't pay attention, when the administrative assistant came in and the IT people came in and told them the hotline to call in case there's an emergency, they had to scramble and look all over the place trying to find the business card. They finally found it, called up, got to the person. Now, if they called company A, who is on call, at 7 o'clock in the morning, we know what happens. At 7 o'clock in the morning, you're trying to get your kids ready for school. The dog is messing around, knocked over the water. The baby's blowing bubbles in the milk. The two girls are fighting over who gets to wear that shirt to school today, and everything's a disaster in the kitchen. Nobody is thinking about the on-call phone on the desk in the dining room. Right? So those minutes are ticking away. But with us, you have that person sitting at the desk doing work from the on-call from overnight. And they see the call come in, they answer it, they're able to handle that password reset in 7 minutes, get them on their way, and the whole thing, there's no explosion because the person was able to get that brief done. And that doesn't even take into the account of time and a half for outside of business hours, right? We don't even talk about that. That's the second part of it that we don't even have to focus on because we focused on the story. We had a hero, we had an antagonist, and we had a conflict that had to get resolved. So opening up your business hours more in a flex time capacity is not only a benefit for your employees, but it's also a benefit to your clients because they don't have to worry about time and a half, which makes the billing person happy. But Murphy's Law states that something's going to happen right when you don't need it to happen, right? And that's 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. The end of month time, there's a lot of information on end of month time. It just, if you have companies in your area that are still doing nothing with end of month time, then you can look into that and you can offer something with end of month time, right? There's a lot of different plans that you can offer out there. You can think of like AT&T rollover, where you could roll over the time, but there's a lot of things out there that you can do with end of month time to show that you're number one versus everybody else, if you're doing it in an MSP capacity. Billing increments. This is a slide I'm going to need to explain a little bit. Billing increments are the bane of my existence, and I can show you how you can crush your competitors, offer a higher price, and still make more money. Because here's what's happening. So we have a bill to the minute. We're billing everybody to the minute at $150 versus a bill to the 15 minutes at $125 an hour. So I'm able to bill revenue more. So, and this is a graph of dollars versus time. So in the bill to the minute, this is the linear part of the graph all the way up. In the 15 minutes, it's the step approach. And we know when we're looking at this, we all know that a password reset takes about 7.5, 8 minutes, right around in there. So if a password reset, and they happen a lot, these level 1 simple tickets happen a lot. If we know that they're taking between 7 to 8 minutes, and our competitor is charging 15 minutes for that ticket, they doubled their money. Their true rate is not $125, it's $250 per hour. And plus, that client, even though they only used 7 or 8 minutes, they paid for 15 minutes. All the rest of that time right here is air. Wasted. Goes right into the IT company's pocket and away from the prospect or the client. So this one right here is your typical mid-range ticket, your level 2 ticket, your server level ticket, about 33 minutes to solve. But even with this, the billing at $150 per hour, they get more value with us, except for right here. We cost a little bit more, but every single spot on the graph is a true cost, and they got a true service for a true price, and every dollar invested in the IT company comes right back out in value. There's no air. So billing to the minute versus billing to the 15 minutes is a huge savings for clients, but it's a value to you because you got to charge more. And nobody can drive a wedge in between you on this 15 minutes versus 1 increments. And this is one of the places where we are able to drive a wedge, is this 15 minutes versus 1 minute, because it doesn't look right when you don't know about it and somebody comes in and tells you about it. Because everybody understands password resets, and everybody typically understands that it takes a short amount of time. So billing differently can help you gain a competitive advantage in your territory because, one, you're billing more efficiently, and two, nobody's able to drive a wedge in between you and your client because of a discrepancy between 15 and 1 minutes. This next one is my favorite. I can talk for hours and hours about this. I love guarantee response time. Everybody out there that I talk to that does guarantee response time of 4 hours, if I show you a way to guarantee them 1 hour, there's no loss on your side. We guarantee 4 hours response time for a critical emergency, not because we expect to ever be at 4 hours, but because we're just trying to protect ourselves. We're protectionists, and we're putting the risk on the clients. But we don't have to. We know that we speak to the client. We handle critical emergencies within the hour. So why are we putting the risk on the client here? If we put the risk on ourselves, then we alleviate that from the client, and we get to set that as a we're best in class scenario. Because here's the thing. You can build an entire story. You can craft an entire pitch around your guarantee response time of 1 hour versus 4 hours. Because we guarantee that we will have boots on the ground within the hour if we need to. Think about that. We can have boots on the ground within the hour if you have a critical emergency, because you can craft your story even deeper. You can say, we have 4 or 5 desktops sitting right in our lab ready to be imaged if we need to have them imaged. We have 2 servers, refurbed servers back there in case we need to do our server. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, but when you're speaking to somebody, they understand inventory, and they understand that that's in your back pocket, and you spoke to something that they know about. So if you say to them, look, if you send in a critical emergency ticket, we have somebody sitting in our emergency department, just like your hospital or just like your fire department, we have somebody sitting there, and they're handling tickets and doing their thing, and if a critical comes in and it's a level 2 or level 3 or level 4, whatever it is, they can jump in their car and take off and get to you and start fixing it. If they have to. Most of the issues get solved online to start with, right? And if we don't do that, the time until we get there is free. Who in here is ever going to let it get past 1 minute, past 1 hour? It's just not possible. We all respond to the ticket and start working on the ticket within the hour. Even if you have to stop and start working on something else, you will start working on the ticket, which is what they're looking for. That somebody is working, because when their network is down, it's like air. If they don't have any air, everything's dying. And if you're telling them that if you're telling them you will be out there with boots on the ground, driving to their location within the hour, and your other company is just guaranteeing that they're going to respond to you within 4 hours, who do you want to work with? Because you sell the difference between 4 hours and 3 hours. Because the difference between 4 hours and 3 hours, I'm not talking about the revenue loss during that time the network was out. I'm talking about the payroll loss, because that's a hard cost that they can never get back. Because when your network's down, everybody's out at the water cooler talking about Kim Kardashian or Tim Tebow, and they're not doing work. So you're paying for nothing. And we don't want that to happen to you. We want to build a partnership where we're focusing on your productivity and your efficiencies, and we're going to make it so we absorb the risk and make sure it's our job to make sure you are number one in your industry because you chose to work with the number one person in our industry. Now, that turns the entire conversation around, and they understand loss in payroll, Kim Kardashian, Tim Tebow, and they're able to change their entire paradigm of shifting or thinking just by talking about guaranteed response time, because people put in their contract the protectionist 4 hours when we know we're not going to ever get to 4 hours. So I built an ROI calculator for this. I told you I really love this guaranteed response time, and we attack this thing mercilessly in our territory. So this IT calculator, I have it up on www.itservicesandcompanies.com. It's a practice website that I use whenever I'm doing coding or working on PHP, whatever I'm doing. I do it on this practice website so I don't mess up our core site. And it's almost ready for you guys. You can use it on that site until it's ready, but I'll give it to anybody who wants it. Just ask me for it, and I'll give it to anybody who wants it. All the code and everything, you can put it up on your site. But here's what you can do with your clients. You can have them type in their monthly cost right there, how many hours they're allotted with their current company, how many employees, and how much revenue that they generally derive in the year. And you can build this. So now on this page, after the calculator calculates everything, it's going to tell you about your current cost per hour, your true hours allotted per month, because remember, if they're in a guaranteed response time of 4, or if they're in 15-minute billing increments, their true hours that they're getting is not 8 hours or 10 hours. It's whatever the loss in air is, because they used 15-minute increments and they only billed for 7 minutes. So I have things in here like their unused monthly time, and they can move this slider back and forth between they didn't use 5% of their time, they didn't use 10% of their time, they used all their time, and then it does it in the billing increments right up here. Emergency response time, what is their emergency response time? What are they guaranteeing? What are they actually doing? And then it goes through everything, and then it spits out what their true cost is, and it spits out how many hours that they actually get for that cost, right? So if they have an 8-hour and they have a 15-minute increments, it's not really 8 hours that they're getting, because there's going to be air inside of that deal. So like I said, this will be available to everybody. I'm still trying to get the plugin to work with the newest update on WordPress. It's not playing nice on the most up-to-date version yet, so I still have it in one version back until I fix it. But it should be ready by IT Nation, and it's free to anybody who wants it. You just take it and use it. The last slide that I want to talk about is your uptime calculator. This is the last form of your provable, unique method that you're going to be using with people, and you're going to be tracking unplanned events. Unplanned events. How are we going to do this for everybody? Because we know that if somebody has differences in their uptime, there is significant value loss between those. If you ask somebody, what do you think your network is up? And they're not an IT person, you say, do you think it's up 99% of the time, 99.2, 99.3, 99.5% of the time? They're going to say, I don't know. And you'll say, well, let's use 99.5% of the time, which is what we found in our area, which is what we found. Now, it might be different in your area. You'll have to figure that out. But if they're down for 99.5% of the time, or they're up for 99.5% of the time, that means that in the year they are going to be down for 13 hours. And I'm not basing this math on a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365-day cycle. I'm only basing this on 10 hours per day from 7 to 7, or from the 9-hour day plus an hour on each side, and then 5 days a week. I'm not talking about the stuff that's during off hours. I'm only talking about when they need it to do their work and to generate their revenue. So if they're only up 99.5% of the time, they're going to be down for 13 hours per year. And 13 hours per year times the average payroll for a 20-person company is $5,200 per month in payroll loss. I'm not even talking about the loss in revenue, because you can eventually, hopefully, make that back. But you have to acknowledge that. Say, I'm not even talking about the revenue, which is 3 times more. I'm talking about just the payroll, where you'll never get it back, where everybody was just sitting out at the water cooler talking about Kim Kardashian and Tim Tebow, and you lost $5,000 in the year because of the company that you're working with doesn't track their uptime. We track uptime. In fact, we have an internal metric that says unplanned events can't happen more than 99.95% of the time. But we don't tell our clients that. We drop it down to 99.9% of the time because we want to have that buffer. Because anytime we get below our inside metric of 99.95, we start freaking out. And we want to freak out before you freak out. That's our job. So if we're up 99.9% of the time and they're up 99.5% of the time, that means we're only down for the year of 2 hours per year. They're down 13 hours per year, and that's a $4,000 difference. $4,000 just in payroll divided by 12 months is about $350 per month. So even if you cost $200 to $300 more per month than your competitor, it's still a savings to them. Because the average network that they're being down, and this especially works if they say that their network has been down and they remember a network outage. Because networks don't go down for 13 hours at a time. They go down for 15 minutes and 30 minutes and 45 minutes. And that 30 minutes the network went down, it took a long time to get everybody back into the rhythm of things, because they stop, they get up, they take a break, they go have coffee, they go do this, and by the time they all get back into it and remember what they're doing, it wasn't just a half an hour downtime, it took even longer. So you can use an uptime calculator to really build the significant value both on tangible and provable results. And every single month you can send them an uptime report that says your network was up 100% of the month, there was no unplanned outages this month, and we met our goal. So that way, when the symptoms do come up for failures in customer service communication and responsiveness, you're able and they're able to remember this report and say, they may have had a failure on customer service communication responsiveness, but our network was up 99.9% of the time, and they had just one issue. It's not that big of a deal, because the 99.9% of the time is a huge number to people, and they minimize the customer service communication responsiveness because you're so great at doing what you're doing. So the symptoms don't seem as powerful because of the productivity and efficiency. That's the end of the presentation, guys. If there's any questions, please contact either Tim McNeil or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you. If you would like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we're going to be putting out more videos as we move across month after month, so you guys can get more of a benefit both on the sales side, the objection handling side, and the sales training side. I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, just give us a call or send us an email. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.